front, everyone. How well do you understand your orientations? At the front. It's interesting, isn't it? I can remember in my training, I was always a back row girl. But then I did come right up the front. It's very... I was one of those people who didn't want to be noticed, basically. Okay, so before we start today, has anyone got any questions or comments they want to share or understandings they might have had from the last 2 days? Yeah, Alison.
It's really nice to do the ATM preparation, you know, with a couple of other people, because there's quite a lot of, well, speaking for myself, quite a lot of things to, it blanks, the way you described it. There's some, in the ATMs we've been given, they're brief, they're a skeleton, I suppose. So it's really interesting to do it with other people and just going to that orientation question, you know, like you suddenly realise, oh, everybody else doesn't think the same way as me about what forward is or up or back and how would then you know, and actually have I got it like wrong for the purposes of the lesson, or if it could be interpreted a variety of ways, what will we settle on and then how will we describe it to people we're teaching? So it's really, it's good. So, yeah.
I think it's true. It's that confusion in a way, do you know what I mean? Or that, I want to say a bit amorphous, because that's somehow how I'll get to, and that it's really great having that, and then how do I get clarity about what it is I do want to get across in a particular ATM or in something, and then how the clarity can also inform that other process.
Yeah, so in a way, I guess it's me as a learner, and then so how do I get clarity for myself, and then how to, and we don't have to agree, I suppose. In the end, we could all agree to teach it differently, but enough clarity for me to then teach it clearly, I suppose. So my class might have clarity as well.
I agree. I still think I said to you yesterday, one of the most powerful things I do to improve my ATM teaching is I do nearly every day. I'd be doing something on the floor, maybe on holidays I might, but most days. But to go to other people's classes is just enlightening, because, you know, one of the things, as you know, I was a practitioner and then I sort of went assistant to trainers, and one of my resistances to going to become a trainer was that you didn't get to see other people teach as much. Whereas when you were an assistant, you still got to see all of these other ways of interpreting the work, and you always knew it was the same, but those different signatures that people would have about what they found was really important to them in the method, and what was the thing that most brought their passion and their curiosity. And that's what I love seeing in ATM teaching. Do you know what I mean? That you hear all these different things, and that sometimes you need that rub of going, oh, I wouldn't do it that way. Do you know, that's not how I would do it. And it's not that it's a criticism, but it sort of helps to refine for you maybe why you would do it another way, and that's another valuable way to do. So I'd really encourage you, you know, go to as many different classes as you can. And just while I'm on my pet subject of ATM, you know, when I did my training, but it's true, when we did our training, there were no practitioners in Australia. So that's why I think most of us decided to do the training early on because there was no way we could do it except to do a training. You know, sometimes I wonder how things would have been different if there'd already been a really good practitioner in Perth. Would I have needed to do a training? Who knows? I don't know. But one of the things I always felt, because we had very few resources, I think we had Frank Wildman's Intelligent Body series that many of us had access to. We didn't really have access to Amherst. We did, but you had to write to Sydney and you could borrow one tape and that had to be posted across and then you had to post it back, and it's hard to remember those days now, really, isn't it? But I did have a couple of tapes of Feldenkrais teaching. And one of the things I always knew when Feldenkrais took the class, I was learning so much more than about movement. There was just something in the way he taught. And I really love listening more and more. How does he do that? Obviously, it's his method. You know, that's going to be a huge part of it. But I was learning so much. It was the concepts. But I had to understand them in my experience, what he was getting at. So I would really encourage you to listen to his teaching. Like, by all means, as many other things, but please listen to his teaching. Listen to how he teaches ATM. There's lots of series available. I know a couple of you have already said that you've got the Esalen tapes to listen to. Who was talking to me about? Yeah, they're fantastic. What he can put into a lesson and how he holds his ability, his self-use. He can get people to do the most amazing things because his self-use holds the room. So he makes people, through his self-use, through his voice, capable of doing things that if I was sitting here worrying, oh, this might be too hard for them, you're going to feel that. That's going to be immediately communicated to you. You know? So this ability, you know, we talk about self-use so much with the Feldenkrais method, and often it gets talked about much more in terms of FI than ATM. And it's essential in ATM, absolutely essential. So as I said, listen to the master, really. The transcripts are fantastic, but to get that voice and he takes you in and he brings you out and he gives you the whole world around you, and then he dives you back into your experience, and then he's getting you to do something while he's telling you this story, and it's brilliant teaching, absolutely brilliant teaching. And I think because I came from a background of being a physio who worked one-on-one, that was something that I really needed to learn a lot about being able to hold a room, to be able to do something. And I know she's sitting over in the corner, my gorgeous twin sister Di, who's taught me so much about teaching and learning, which has been invaluable. So that's what we're going to start the morning off with, learning. So one of my things for this segment, as I said to you, was to really talk to you about learning, or to talk to you about how we incorporate these big ideas of learning that we have in awareness through movement. So we were talking at the beginning about, we're looking at me as a learner and me as a teacher, and that these two are constantly informing each other, and you can never take one from the other. I think one of the things that I loved about listening to Feldenkrais is you felt that he was an active learner. You never felt listening to Feldenkrais that he'd reached the idea of, I know this now, this is how it is, it's immutable, this is what the Feldenkrais method is, this is how I teach it, constantly changing, constantly. And I think the other interesting thing about Feldenkrais is when you read his books, there's no bibliography. There's not one reference. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a couple in there sometimes. There's a couple of references, but no bibliography ever. And yet he read everything, you know. So his style of being able to bring all of these thoughts and to synthesize them into something that was uniquely his own, I think is really amazing. So this is just these are three questions that I'm going to give credit to Di for helping me with a lot of this over the years. So these three are interlaced all the time when I'm looking at these. First one, what is it powerful to learn? So that's a big question. That can be a really big question and can be specific. So it could be as specific as, I'm going to teach an ATM class. What is it powerful for the participants of this class to learn in this ATM? What would I like to really bring to the foreground of what I would like them to have an experience of in this ATM? Second one, what is powerful learning and what promotes it? So how do we even decide what powerful learning is? And then how do we go about promoting it? And then just as importantly, how do I know when it's been learnt? Because it's all very well to have this idea of da-da-da-da, but how do we then decide that we've learnt something? So we're going to start off just in little groups of 3. Actually, no, you could probably do 4 for this. And we're going to stick just with this first bit. So what is powerful learning? And you can come from an experience that you have where you go, I really learnt something then. That was something that's really stayed with me. So what is it that stayed with you? What is it that made it powerful learning? So it can be, as I said, an experience, or it might be something that's accumulated over time. Or you might want to just be quite abstract and think, well, what do I think powerful learning is? What is it to learn? Because learning's got many definitions, and we're interested in finding one that sort of makes sense for us as Feldenkrais practitioners. So that's your first little job. Yeah, little groups of 4 or 3 or 4.